Welcome to the Maniac Sky Japan YouTube channel. Today, let's dive into and decipher Cover Regulation to Implementing Regulation EU 219947, Article 13, Cross-Border Operations or Operations Outside the State of Registration.
Yeah, which is quite the mouthful, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. But, when you pack your bags for a road trip across Europe, there's this wonderful expectation of absolute seamlessness.
Right, for sure. You just get in and go.
Exactly. You put your luggage in the trunk in Paris or Berlin, and you just drive. The borders are practically invisible. I mean, you might see a little blue sign with some yellow stars, or maybe like a subtle change in the font on the highway signs.
Right, but your car is still your car.
Yeah, your license is still valid, and your momentum just never breaks. But imagine if, right at that invisible line on the map, you had to pull over
Ugh, the absolute worst.
and completely recertify that your vehicle's suspension was safe for, like, the specific chemical composition of the asphalt in that new country, and then wait weeks for local authorities to stamp new papers before you could drive another inch.
I mean, the logistics of any cross-border commerce would instantly grind to a halt. The entire purpose of an open, connected region is basically destroyed the moment you introduce that level of localized friction.
And yet, for a long time, that logistical nightmare was the exact reality if you were operating an enterprise business just a few hundred feet above that highway.
Yeah, it was incredibly complicated.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're starting out on slide 1, obviously, which is the title, Article 13, Cross-Border Operations. Think of this slide deck as your ultimate survival guide to not getting your drone confiscated in another country.
Which is a very real threat if you mess the paperwork up. And moving over to slide 2, it's really important to note that this applies specifically to the specific category of drone operations.
Right, so we aren't just talking about flying a plastic toy in your backyard here.
Exactly.
Thank you.
This is about serious, potentially highly complex flights that move from one member state to another. Things like heavy agricultural spraying drones or, urban medical deliveries.
Right, beyond visual line-of-sight stuff, high-stakes operations. So when an enterprise operator wants to expand from their home country into a neighboring EU state, the paperwork has to start somewhere.
It does. And the entire framework really anchors on one fundamental concept.
Which brings us to slide 3, the principle of the state of registration. Basically, the golden rule of home base.
Yeah, it serves as the absolute bedrock for the entire cross-border system. Before you even look at a map of a foreign market, you have to solidify your standing at home.
Kind of like getting a driver's license. Your home country tests you and gives you the permit.
Precisely. Your home state evaluates your overarching safety management system, the technical specs of your drones, and the competency of your pilots. They give you that baseline authorization.
But wait, if my home state puts me through the ringer and says I'm good to go, why do I have to talk to the destination country at all? Like, if the German Aviation Authority says my fleet is safe, why does France care? A drone doesn't suddenly forget the laws of aerodynamics when it crosses a border, right?
Well, no, but if we connect this to the bigger picture, the destination state retains a sovereign responsibility to protect its citizens.
Right. They own the airspace.
Exactly. The authorization from Germany proves your drone works and your pilots are trained. What it cannot possibly prove is how your operation interacts with a specific, localized environment in Spain that the German authority has literally never seen.
Ah, I get it. So the destination state isn't doubting your general ability to fly safely. They're questioning your ability to fly safely right there in their specific backyard.
Yes. Which leads us perfectly into slide 4, covering Article 13.1. An operator must submit an application to the destination member state, but, and this is key, they get to use their existing home state authorization as the foundation.
So you aren't starting from scratch. You're just attaching your verified credentials to a localized request. That makes sense.
It prevents a massive duplication of effort, yeah.
Okay, so since the home state's approval isn't a total blank check, what exactly does the destination state care about? We move to slide 5, which emphasizes this crucial requirement of updating mitigations.
And this is where operators often underestimate the workload, honestly. Let's look at the geographical diversity of Europe.
Oh, it's wild.
Right. So suppose your home state approved your flight plan over a massive, flat, super predictable agricultural region in Denmark.
Okay, easy enough.
Your safety plan might rely heavily on visual observers tracking the drone for miles. But now you take that exact same drone and want to operate it in the Austrian Alps.
Oh, wow. Where visual line of sight is immediately blocked by giant mountains.
Exactly. And the weather can change in 5 minutes. The destination state will look at local airspace, terrain, population density, and climatic conditions.
Yeah.
In Austria, your Danish mitigation of visual observers is physically impossible.
Right, so you have to update your mitigations, prove you've installed, I don't know, automated flight termination systems or localized weather sensors.
You got it. It's not just tweaking text in a manual. You're often fundamentally altering the technical deployment to survive the local physics.
Man, that sounds intense. And on slide 6, we hit the assessment phase. The destination state reviews this updated application, quote unquote, without undue delay.
Ah, yes, without undue delay.
Which is just classic lawyer speak for, we'll get to it when we get to it, but hopefully soon.
Yeah, that's the great bureaucratic shield. It acknowledges that assessing a complex urban flight path takes deep scrutiny, but it also sets an expectation that they can't just stall forever to protect local businesses.
Right, assuming you actually survive the queue, they issue a confirmation of acceptability. But waiting weeks for manual reviews is a massive bottleneck for any business trying to scale.
It's agonizingly slow, which is why regulators built in bypasses.
Please let me know your thoughts in the comments, leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe. Even though I'm an AI, your support really boosts my motivation to improve my pronunciation and create better content for you.
Yes, definitely do that. But returning to those bypasses, this is where the regulators try to reward standardized operations.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. On slide 7, we look at these VIP lanes. The first bypass relies on operations based on a declaration under a standard scenario, or an STS.
This process is incredibly streamlined. It removes the destination state's assessment phase entirely.
Wait, really? Entirely?
Entirely. A standard scenario is a predefined operational box crafted by EASA. It dictates exactly what drone you use, max heights, speeds, everything.
So if your operation fits perfectly inside that predefined box, you don't even ask the destination state for a custom review.
Nope. You just hand over a copy of your home state receipt to the destination state, and boom, you are clear to fly. No further verification required.
Wow, that is a huge advantage. But what if you don't fit in that box? Slide 8 talks about the ultimate VIP pass, the Light UAS Operator Certificate, or LUC.
The LUC is the absolute pinnacle of regulatory trust. The home state forensically audits your company's entire safety culture, not just a single flight plan.
So they're checking if you know how to evaluate safety itself.
Exactly. And if you have the right privileges, you can literally assess local conditions yourself. You do the local risk assessment internally, notify the destination state, and start operating immediately upon receipt.
That is wild. They don't wait for permission, they just declare their arrival.
What's fascinating here is how heavily the regulation rewards operators who have proven their safety culture. It creates this highly pragmatic, tiered system of trust.
That is so smart. Okay, but for the folks who aren't in the VIP lanes, let's talk workflow. Slide 9 highlights that the burden is entirely on the operator to identify local conditions and adapt to their operations manual.
Yeah, the destination state will absolutely not hold your hand. You have to study the meteorological data, airspace restrictions, and engineer the solutions yourself.
Right. So moving to slides 10 and 11, we see the actual application flow based on AMC1 and GM1 for Article 13. But I want to clarify something here. Is the destination country essentially redoing the entire risk assessment from scratch?
No, emphatically no.
Oh, thank goodness.
The destination state limits its activity strictly to checking the updated local mitigations. They only scrutinize the delta.
So it's like traveling internationally with a complex appliance. Your home state certifies the appliance won't catch fire, but you still need to build a specific local power adapter for the destination country.
That is a perfect analogy. The destination state is only inspecting the adapter, and when they approve it, they send the confirmation back to your home state.
So the home state records this and issues the revised overarching authorization. You just maintain a single operational license. That actually prevents a lot of duplicate work.
It does. It keeps the system moving beautifully.
Okay, so we understand the workflow, but let's look at the actual paperwork. Briefly recapping on slide 12, the STS flow is highlighted again for its simplicity, which we love. But then we hit slide 13.
Ah, slide 13.
The application form details. It is not just about airspace heights and battery redundancies, is it?
Not at all. This is the hidden hurdle. You must declare compliance with national rules.
Like what?
Privacy, data protection, liability, insurance, security, and environmental protection.
Oh, wow. So drone safety laws might be harmonized across the EU, but local privacy laws absolutely aren't.
Exactly. You might have a bulletproof aviation safety record. The Finnish authority might say your flight path is perfectly safe. But if your drone's cameras violate a strict local data privacy ordinance in a specific municipality,
You are entirely on your own.
yeah, the aviation approval doesn't shield you from civil liability.
That is terrifying for an operator. Okay, so wrapping up on slide 14, which covers confirmation validity, and slide 15, the big summary. So what does this all mean?
It means Article 13 is a very clever balancing act.
Yeah, it leverages the primary authorization from the home state to keep commerce moving while fiercely protecting local safety and rules. Well, to you, the listener, I have to say congratulations for surviving this 15-slide regulatory gauntlet.
Yeah, he's dense material for sure.
But just understanding this puts you leaps and bounds ahead of the average drone operator.
It really does. But, this raises an important question. We've seen how beautifully Article 13 handles geographical and climate differences between countries. But as our skies become crowded with commercial delivery drones and air taxis, will these localized rules around privacy and environmental protection become the new invisible borders?
Oh, that's a brilliant point.
Right. If every city has a totally different definition of noise pollution, does the dream of a truly unified European sky just hit a brick wall of local micro-regulations?
That is wild to think about. I want you to think about that the next time you look up and see a drone cross your local skyline. Is it just navigating the wind, or is it navigating an invisible maze of local laws? Please share your thoughts and feedback in the comments section down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can find links to other videos in this series in the description box, so be sure to check them out. I'll see you in the next video from Maniac Sky Japan. Goodbye, and take care.